What's up, Village? My name is Jimmy. This is my wife, Megan. And we're so thankful to do a couple songs for you. So let's just get into this heart of worship and let's do it.
You are here, moving in our midst. We worship you, we worship you. You are here, moving in this place. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, moving in this place. I worship you, I worship you. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you, I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you, I worship you. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 You are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 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 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. 'Cause you are waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are.
Thank you, Jimmy and Megan. And now, announcements. We have a lot of great things going on, and we are always so grateful for you, and we are so grateful for the person who owns this building. We have not had to pay a mortgage for the past 3 months because of the COVID situation, but July is coming. If you can and are willing and able, please consider making a donation. There are 3 ways to give. 1, you can text GIVE to the number on your screen, 404-998-8979. You can go to our website, thevillageatlanta.com, and it'll be on the top right corner of the page for you to give via the internet. And lastly, you can send a check the old-fashioned way to the physical address of the Village, 3418 Dogwood Drive, Hateville, Georgia, 30054. And we have no other announcements this week. Easy week. So, on that note, if you'll please bow your heads and pray with me. Dear Lord, thank you for this time together and for still being able to worship despite these trying times. And we pray for our brothers and sisters who are being persecuted, as well as those who are suffering from illness and the other ills that we don't know of in this world. In your name we pray, amen. And now more singing.
Carried a burden for too long on my own. I wasn't created to bear it alone. Hear your invitation to let it all go, and I see it now, laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, the reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, soul needs a friend, so I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 oh. You saw my condition, had a plan from the start. Your son for redemption, the price for my heart. And I don't have a context for this kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend. All I know is I need you. I run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, the reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, soul needs a friend, so I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 oh. My heart has been in your sight long before my first breath, running into your arms, running from life, from death. And I feel this rush deep in my chest. Mercy is calling out, just as I am. You roll me in, and I know I need you now. I run to the Father, fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, soul needs a friend, so I run to the Father again and again. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, the reason to wait. My heart found a surgeon, soul found a friend, so I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, again and again and again and again. Oh, Jesus, run to the Father, fall into grace. Done with the hiding, reason to wait. My heart searching, soul found a friend, so I run to the Father again and again, again and again.
So a couple of weeks ago, I celebrated my birthday. I was 58 years old. And we have a few friends and family members that are kind of in our bubble. I mean, we're around each other, and so we're able to hang out. So we had a little get-together, a little meal at my house, and wasn't a big deal. Ethan and Rachel were there, and Neil was there, and our friend Athanasia was there. And everybody's just kind of chatting around the table, and I decided to be profound, and I started talking about, at my age 58, I had many more years behind me than I have in front of me, and I guess if I could have 30 more years, and if I knew those were going to be healthy years, how that would probably be about all that I would have coming is just 30. Anyway, I'm thinking, and have you ever just seen somebody just totally kill a conversation around the table? That's what I did. I totally killed the conversation. Everybody's now staring at me, and I'm realizing this is probably not a fun kind of talk that anybody wants. But I do. Every time around my birthday, I spend time thinking about kind of the end of life. When's that going to be? And could it be 30, 40 years from now? That would be ideal if I could live those years healthily, but it could be tomorrow. I get that. Remember the bumper sticker that used to see it all the time that said blank happens, except it didn't say blank, it said crap happens. Aging, I am realizing, happens. It happens, and there's not a lot that we can do about it. There's so many things in life that we can't control. We can't control where we were born. We can't control who our parents were. We can't control, for the most part, when we die. And we can't control that we are going to be getting older. The only thing we kind of sort of can control is what we do in that in-between time. What kind of attitude do we have about life? And when I have a birthday, this is just kind of the way that I think. As a pastor for nearly 40 years now, I've had the privilege of spending time with people who have discovered that they only had a limited time left to live, 1 month, 3 months, 6 months. And it's always been interesting to see what they do. It seems like they want to get in touch with those people that they've not told they love, and they wanted to make sure that they said those words, I love you. And then there are those people that they need to ask forgiveness from, and they suddenly have courage to do that. They've not had courage, but now that the end is in sight, they do. I didn't know Jane. I guess this was maybe 35 years ago. There was a lady that had been unbelievably ugly to Jane. And then she got a diagnosis. This woman got a diagnosis of cancer, and it was going to end up taking her life. But one of the first things that she did is she called Jane on the phone, and she said, "Can you forgive me for all the hurt that I have caused?" Just been thinking about what would happen if I knew I had this length of time left. What would my life be like? What would I focus on? And so I don't want you to think that I'm not going to talk about Black Lives Matter, because I am, and I'm going to be talking about pride. I am. But I kind of want to put it in this understanding about life and what I want to do with my time left, however long that is. And I want you to kind of put it in that same frame for yourself. What are you going to do with the time you have left? Jesus said this in John 10:10, and I love the way how it reads out of the Message. I came so that they can have real and eternal life, more and better life than they ever dreamed of. I love that last phrase, more and better life than they ever dreamed of. So I want to spend just a few minutes. I want to talk to you about 4 or 5 things that I want to do with the rest of my life. And I'm good if we all agree, let's make it 40 years from now and let's make it healthy the whole way, okay? That'd be great. But of course, none of us know. Here's the first thing. I want to live however many years I have left passionately. I want to live passionately. And I'm not feeling it right now in COVID-19. I got to be honest with you. Here's the definition of passion. Passion is a strong or extravagant fondness, enthusiasm, or desire for something. And I want to have a passion for life. Corona has made this tough. It's easy to say every day looks exactly like the day before, and there's nothing fun or nothing exciting to do. My day, truthfully, my day for the most part consists of being on the phone, being on the internet, being on my computer, being on the television, but it's just me sitting all the time. That's what my day is. There's no sports, there's no parties, there's no travel, there's no concerts, there's no gym. So no, I have not been very passionate about life lately, but I'm kind of sick and tired of that. I don't want that to be my life. I know many of you are struggling with the very same thing. I understand. But this week, I have really been thinking about one of my heroes, and we've talked about him many times at the Village, Viktor Frankl. And you will remember his story. He's the Austrian neurologist and psychiatrist, and he was a Holocaust survivor. He had been at Auschwitz. And through that difficulty at Auschwitz, more than coronavirus difficult, we're talking about seeing your friends dying every day, living on just a morsel of food every day, being dehumanized in so many ways. That was the way Viktor Frankl had to live at Auschwitz. But he said this is what he discovered. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing. The last of the human freedoms is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. What he's saying is when you're in a difficult time, you get to choose how you're going to live it. Even in Auschwitz, they could not take that away from him. He could choose how he was going to walk through the hellish period of time that he had to walk through. Here's something else that he said that I think is brilliant. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So I've been looking in the mirror and saying, Ray, you have kind of been flat in your life. You've kind of let Corona win the day. You've kind of been just sedentary and being kind of frustrated with what's going on. When the fact is, you could make changes in your own life if you wanted to. How do you do it? Well, I'll tell you one thing, we overthink sometimes how to approach passionate living. One of the things that we do, I do this, is I put it off until tomorrow. Or I put it off till, it's 3 days from now. That's going to be my start. Or I put it off until the next month, whenever the start of the new month is. That's when I'm going to start. And I constantly am moving the starting time for when I'm going to live a passionate life. When am I going to actually be excited about this life that we get to live? I'm discovering more and more, probably the word, if you could say there's one word that I think the divine would give approval to above all other words, I think it would be the word today. Today. That's what we have, today. Right now, this moment, today. And if there were evil spirits in the atmosphere, the word that I think they would embrace the most would probably be the word tomorrow. Because I think that kills us more than anything else, constantly putting off what we know we could start today, but we say, I'm going to start it tomorrow. Someday when work's not so busy, I'm going to play with the kids. Someday when I get that promotion and I'm making more money, then I'm going to really enjoy life. Someday when I finally get that master's degree out of the way, then I'm going to finally have passion for living. Someday when I reach that next level of success, then I'm going to fight for people who are being discriminated against. But we constantly are putting off until tomorrow what we could be doing today. If you are breathing, I want you to realize we have a sacred gift of life that each of us are experiencing at this moment. And it's not perfect. It's far from perfect. We're living in a difficult time for sure. And I don't want to beat anybody up over this because I'm telling you, I've struggled with this. I'm talking to myself. I want to wake up tomorrow with a passion for living. That's what I want to do. Life comes at you fast, and I don't want to miss any of it because I've just kind of got my head down. I want to experience it all, and I want to experience it with passion. Luke 7:31, Jesus said this. He talked about his generation. He says, "To what then can I compare the people of this generation? What are they like? They are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling out to each other, 'We played the flute for you and you did not dance. We sang a dirge and you did not cry.'" And then Jesus goes on to say, John the Baptist was here and he was preaching a difficult message to you about not eating and drinking and being so careless with everything that you're doing, and you hated him, and now I'm coming and you say he eats and he drinks. You hate me. You will never be satisfied. You need to live life fully. We vastly overestimate putting off till tomorrow when we can choose to live life today. I read regularly this brilliant woman by the name of Dr. Thema. Her name is actually Dr. Thema Bryant Davis, and she's a licensed psychologist. She's an ordained minister. She's also a sacred artist, and she works really around the globe helping people kind of understand life. Look her up, Dr. Thema, Thema. Alex Bertolo from the Village Church told me about her, and she says some incredibly profound things. She said this. She said that you have to begin to heal before you can fully begin to live the life that you're supposed to live. Here's her quote. "As you heal, you become less willing to dilute yourself. You're more likely to show up with the fullness of who you are." That's what I mean by passion. You wake up and you live your life fully. You are willing to express it in the most passionate way possible. Some people say, "Ray, I just don't know how to get passion." Well, assuming that some of the healing has taken place, I'll give you the best way that I know to live life with passion. Set the alarm, and you get up tomorrow morning, and you live life as if you were feeling passionate about it. You do those things that will inspire you. You just begin to do them, and I have discovered passion begins to follow. I believe action precedes attitude. When I do actionable things, my attitude follows. If I choose to get up tomorrow morning, exercise, and eat right, that will make me more passionate than if I choose to sleep in and eat pancakes and just kind of have that kind of a life. Choose to get busy doing some actionable things. It will be helpful. I used to say to the boys all the time, move a muscle, change a mood. Move a muscle, change a mood. And we don't have to go through COVID and sit back and say, this is the most boring time of our life. We can be passionate about our lives even through the coronavirus. Second thing, what do I want to do with the time I have left? I want to love completely. I want to love completely. So Jesus has just a short time left before he's going to die. And this scripture in John 13, Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who are in the world, I love this, he now showed them the full extent of his love. So Jesus knows his end is coming, so what's he going to do? He is now going to show them the full extent of his love. If you only knew you had 1 month to live, what would it be like? I believe you'd say things you've always wanted to say, and you'd do things you've always wanted to do. You would want to focus on relationships and express love to those who are closest to you. It seems simple, but it's really profound. We need to do that now. We don't know how long we have, so why don't we do it now? We say this all the time. Jesus summarized the whole Bible when he said, love God and love people. You ask, what's my job as a pastor? It's basically to get you to understand that, love God. And the only way to show that you love God, by the way, is by loving people. There's nothing else you can do except love people. That's it. And by loving people, you are loving God. At the end of your life, it won't matter how much money's in your bank account. It won't matter how many awards you've won, how high you've gone in education, the goals you've achieved. The big thing is, have you loved? Have you really loved? And so I've been asking myself, am I loving my family optimally? Am I really showing them that I love them? Am I telling them that I love them? What about my friends? Am I telling Neil I love him? Or am I telling other friends, I love you? I love you being in my life. How about those who are hurting? Am I letting them know that I love them, that I want to stand with them, that I want to be with them? What about those I even disagree with? Am I writing them off? Am I saying I'm going to be just ugly to them because they don't agree with me? Or am I going to do my best to even love those who disagree or even hate me? I'm going to still try to love them. 1 Corinthians 13:8 says, love never fails. Love never fails. So that's the way we're supposed to live. We're supposed to live with love out front for every relationship that we encounter. Love is the way. Let me ask you, how are you doing? Toward the end of Jesus' life, remember he washed the disciples' feet? That was a lesson he was teaching them, but I also think it was an act of love for these men that he dearly cared for, who meant everything to him, and he washed their feet. How are you showing people that you love them? Important thing, I believe. Third thing is this: what do I want to do with the time I have left? So I want to live passionately, that's true, and I want to love, that's true, but I also want to learn humbly. I want to learn humbly. I don't know if y'all are old enough to remember the Mac Davis song from 1980. Some of y'all will. It was really a funny song, and it was played on all the stations. The title of it was, "It's Hard to Be Humble." And the chorus went like this: "Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble when you're perfect in every way. I can't wait to look in the mirror because I get better looking each day. To know me is to love me. I must be a hell of a man. Oh Lord, it's hard to be humble, but I'm doing the best that I can." It is hard for some of us to be humble, isn't it? It's hard for us to have a posture of wanting to learn and not thinking that we know it all. There's a scripture in Philippians 2 talking about Jesus, and it's just a little phrase, but I love it. He humbled himself. He humbled himself. And that's something that I have had to learn, how to humble myself. And I guess if there was one lesson that I tried to teach to my sons, it was that idea that you don't want to go through this life arrogant, thinking that you know. You want to go through life teachable with a humble spirit. And with whatever time left, I want that to be who I am. I want to be willing to listen. Through this, the last weeks, as Black Lives Matter has taken center stage, it hurts me when I see people who are not willing to listen. And these are my white friends. But they know what they know, and so they don't want to stop and listen to an African American talking about their life and what they have experienced. Many of my white friends, they don't want to know. They don't want to know. They know what they know. They're going to stick their fingers in their ear. They know what they know. That's all they need to know. And they're not willing to listen. I used to be that way. I don't want to be that way now. I want to learn to listen. I want to be willing to learn. Listen, I think you begin to die when you stop learning. We need to be growing and learning, and I certainly want to be growing and learning into my 60s and into my 70s and into my 80s, and I hope when I'm pushing 90, I hope I'm still learning. My brain is still being challenged with things I had never thought about before. I want to be willing to grow. I don't want to ever be afraid of changing my mind. Probably the best thing Jane and I have watched on the television through the COVID-19 thing is it was a short series on Netflix called Unorthodox, and it's about a Hasidic Jewish girl. And it's kind of a coming of age thing because she has all these traditions in her mind, but she's also beginning to experience life outside of the bubble, and she's really being torn about which way to go. She doesn't want to be a blasphemer. She doesn't want to be anti-God, but this doesn't seem to be anti-God. These people seem to be good people. What is right? And she's really struggling with, how do I change my mind? But in humility, we can do that. Stan does this thing. I could never do it the way Stan does it. But he talks about how he used to see his religion. You know, he grew up a Pentecostal, but it doesn't matter. It could be Baptist for me or Methodist or Lutheran for however you were raised. And he said he used to see his religion as this group of people that were on the top of the mountain. If the mountain was God, they had kind of climbed up, and they were really the only ones that had ascended to the top. Of course, you have to imagine Stan saying this beautifully the way he could say it. And so they thought nobody else was even in the ball game, pretty much. They had risen to a level, and everybody else must certainly be at the bottom of the mountain. They alone had achieved this height. And then he said, and of course the mountain is clouded, so they can't see anything except kind of the area where they are. But one day the wind shifted and the clouds blew away, and he discovered not only was he not on the top of the mountain, he was on just a little side jut, kind of something just barely coming out of the side, close to the very bottom. And he looked around, and there were other religious groups that too thought they were at the top of the mountain, but they too were just on these little side things shooting out. But it was all very, very close to the bottom of the mountain. And he said it was quite an open eye experience for him to realize that they had not made it to the top of the mountain. Then he closes with something like this. He says now he has decided to just simply live his life in the cottage at the foot of the mountain and then enjoy mountain climbing every day. But it's like, oh my gosh, I get what he's saying. I used to think the 20-year-old Ray thought he knew more about God and religion and what was right than anybody could imagine. I had achieved the top. I knew all I needed to know. And I look back now and think, how silly was I? How foolish was I? How proud was I? And now with humility, I say, you know what? It's a huge mountain. And I've been honestly, just a few feet up. And so every day I come back down to my little cottage, and the next day do mountain climbing again, but no longer with this idea that I have ascended to the top and somehow I know more than everybody else around the world. That's not so. And so humility is something I want to live the rest of my life with. And honestly, if you hear me and you think pride is coming through or arrogance is coming through or a lack of desire to learn, then call me on it. Please call me on it, because I intend to live out my remaining years in humility. Here's a fourth thing. I want to live courageously. I want to live courageously. My dad was my hero. He still is. He's 78, and he's still my hero. But I grew up hearing stories about him. I heard the story of him charging into a burning house, all these people standing on the street corner, not knowing what to do. And my dad, I think he was 15, charged into a burning house. This mom was screaming for her baby, that she wanted somebody to rescue her baby. My dad went up into the fire. The fire pushed him back. He got a wet cloth from the sink, went as far as he could go, finally found a crib, was able to rescue the baby. It was a big story in Atlanta, and he's a hero. So I grew up with that story. And it's like, no, he's my hero for sure, but I don't know if I'm so courageous. I don't know if I always thought, I don't know if I would run into a burning building. I don't know if I would do that. Then my dad did other things. I remember once a carload of big, tough guys got mad at this little Volkswagen that had 3 hippies in it. And this is when I was a kid, using the term hippie. But anyway, these big tough guys, they pulled the driver hippie out of the car, and they were just this one guy was just beating this hippie almost to death. And my dad, in the midst of all these people, my dad is the one. Nobody was doing anything. I was just a kid just watching. And my dad quieted everybody and said, you need to leave him alone right now. And the whole situation turned, but it turned because my dad was courageous. Another time, there was a busboy in a Howard Johnson's that was being mercilessly just beaten down by this big Texan who was drunk and who was a racist. And anyway, my dad fixed the situation. And so I always thought, what courage he has. But I never knew if I had courage, really. In church, I was the church teenage boy. I was in the teenage youth group. And, that doesn't take much courage just to be the evangelical in an area where being evangelical is kind of a good thing. It's like, how much courage does that take? I never really knew about social justice, ever. But as I have gotten older, I've realized we can be courageous in this life. And it's not running into a burning building, and it's not physically stopping a fight, stepping in the middle of a fight. Sometimes it is just standing up for what is right in a world where so many people don't think it's right. I've been reading this verse all week. This has been a verse that's kind of been neon lights to me. Isaiah 1:17, correct oppression. Correct oppression. Bring justice to the fatherless. Please plead the widow's cause. Correct oppression. Correct oppression. Cheryl Cannon Groves is one of our Everybody Church women who also watches the Village Church, and she's just a delightful person. She wrote this week, she said, I'd love your thoughts on this. This was on Facebook. She said, I believe that I grew up with a limited viewpoint of justice. In fact, I believe that if someone was fighting for justice for others, they were probably liberal. And for me, liberal wasn't a compliment. And Cheryl, I grew up the exact same way. Liberal, that's like the worst cuss word in the world from where I've come from. But now I realize to be called liberal, if that means that I'm fighting for the underdog, if that means that I am correcting oppression, if that means I'm standing up for people who have been downtrodden, then I wear liberal proudly. Yes, that's who I am. That's who I intend to be. That's a person that's living life with some semblance of courage. Dr. Cornel West, I love him, by the way. He said this, never forget that justice is what love looks like in public. Isn't that a great quote? Never forget that justice is what love looks like in public. I remember 10 years ago, I guess, 10 years ago, maybe a little longer, 12 years ago, beginning to talk about the idea that LGBTQ that had been excluded, how that was a misunderstanding by the church. That was a misunderstanding by the church, and that our church was our table. We weren't inviting the LGBT to our table. It's their table too. This is all of our table. We're recognizing this is the way it's supposed to be, right? And I had never stepped out of kind of just going along with everybody else's belief, even when I knew it didn't resonate with me years and years and years and years and years ago. But it was 12 years ago that I finally said, you know what? This is how I believe. And it's not just me. There are people all over the world that are believing this. And you maybe disagree with me, but it doesn't mean that you're right and I'm wrong. This is, we believe, a better way to understand the truth. And so my life changed. That was like the first step into something that seemed courageous. I remember when I went to Provincetown, Massachusetts in 2011 to do a same-sex wedding. It wasn't legal in the whole country, but it was legal in Massachusetts. And I remember standing, waiting for the two brides to come in, and I remember thinking, am I sure this is right? Am I sure that God is pleased with this? And I'm telling you, I felt God's pleasure more than any other time in my life. I felt the smile of God on my life. And I knew that I was doing something right. Black Lives Matter. I have believed the Black Lives Matter cause for a long time. But for many years, I didn't want people from my past to argue. I just didn't want to say anything. Probably was a little fearful just to go on record and say stuff. But it's like, you know what? I'm 58, and my courage is nothing like the courage that others have shown, the courage that African Americans show every single day. But with my time left, do I really care? Do I really care if somebody is going to disagree with the Black Lives Matter that I went to high school with, and they're going to think that I am keeping the race thing churning when I really should just let it go? Ray, just let it go. I don't care. I don't care. I want to be courageous, and I want to take a stand, and I want to correct oppression. That's the message that Isaiah tells us, and I want to be a courageous person. Last thing I've been thinking about is, I don't know how long I've got, right? I hope 30, 40 years, that'd be amazing to me. 40 years is a stretch, that'd be 98, so that'd be a stretch, I guess. But however I get to go out, I want to go out as boldly as I possibly can. In other words, I hope I am still living up until the point that I'm not. I mean living, really living, making a difference, making a contribution. That's my hope. I hope I am not reclined back watching TV all day if I can do more. There's so many people that are heroes to me in their 80s and 90s. Neil introduced me to a person on the internet, Jacques Pepin, an amazing chef. And here he is, 85 years old, and Ethan watches him and I watch him, and I'll sometimes watch 5 of his little teaching videos in a row. This beautiful old man who is a fantastic chef, and he's 85. I think about others that impress me. This is not about politics at all, but when I see Bernie Sanders at 79, just continuing to fight for people who need a champion, I think, I want to do that at 79. I hope that's my life. I see power lifters in the gym who are in their 70s and 80s, and I think, I want to grow old like this. I think of Jane's mom, who's 90 and still lives a busier life than most people that I know who are 30 or 40 years younger than she is, but she's one of my heroes. Tony Campolo, who was my first progressive voice I ever listened to. Tony Campolo is 85 years old, and he still travels around the world. He still preaches and teaches, and he's still pushing people to do more to make this world a better place. And I think, I want that. I want that. And I hope you do too. I hope you're thinking about how you want to live out the last part of your life, whatever that means. And then I hope you'll start. I want to start. I don't want COVID-19 to keep me on the sidelines. I want to make sure that I'm doing those things, that I'm passionate, that I'm loving, that I'm learning every single day, that I'm being courageous. I'm not sitting back. For some of you, this whole talk was just so you would hear me say, be courageous. Be courageous. Put it on Facebook. You want to do it? Put it on Facebook. Somebody tells a racist joke in your house, stop them. Stop them. Say, that's not here. That's not the way we talk. Here. You want to stand up for LGBTQ community? It's Pride Month. This would be a great time to let people know that you stand with our LGBT siblings. This would be a wonderful month for you to do it, and you will feel so good when you finally say the words. And then we can all grow old, living as bold as we possibly can live. That's how we all need to be going out. That's sure the way that I want to go out. Well, I don't know if this has been helpful to you, but it's sure been what I've been thinking about over the last 2 weeks. and I hope it'll maybe resonate with you. Write in the comments, if you've stuck with us this long, write in the comments something that you'd like to do as far as your life, the rest of your life. What are some things maybe you're thinking? And I'm looking forward to us getting together soon. People say, when will you open the church back up? And really, the reports are so, everybody is so unsure right now that it's going to be several weeks, I think, before we even have an idea of when we're going to be able to open up. But it will be nice to share space with you again in this room. And I thank you for watching. I thank you for sharing. And I love you very, very much. Hope you have a great week.